Why did we choose Tlacotepeque? First of all, it's bilingual. They speak Mixteco and Spanish. They are indigenous, and this is a new trend coming to the United States, indigenous migrants. And that's what it says. So while we were there in January, we conducted over 750 surveys that we designed and created ourselves. It was over 70 pages long, touching everything from health to transnational.
What I seek to illustrate, besides tracing the development of settlement of title in the Galilee region and its movement into the southern region, is explaining the impact of this process on two minority groups in Israel. And that is the Palestinian minority in the north and the Palestinian Bedouin community in the south. And these are two distinct minority populations within the state of Israel. And their comparative impact is very interesting when studying it through the process of land planning itself and the dynamics that poses with the state. So just to give you a very quick background, through tracing the legal developments of land use planning in Israel, we have to start back at the 1858 Ottoman Land Code. And this land code was established to define title over land based on terms of cultivation. Now, this is very important because there are different ways of asserting rights over land.
This plump, red, juicy tomato with a syringe in it, something called GMOs. I don't know how familiar you all are with GMOs, but genetically modified organisms, sometimes called genetically engineered organisms, or however, permutations, combinations. The reference with regards to the seed tribunal, genetically modified seeds for plants and crop purposes that a lot of the rural farmers in India are now being coerced into using. Started back in the 1970s, that's when the movement really started, the science revolution called the Green Revolution. At this Green Revolution, scientists basically got together, decided that, to fight poverty, to relieve, to alleviate poverty, to solve food problems, to save the world, a bunch of scientists are going to get together, genetically modify the seeds that they use, and potentially solve world hunger. In sociological terms, it's called the Malthusian problem. The population's growing way, way, way faster than the world can take care of us.
And this is population England in millions. So around 1200, population England, that's like 4 million. It's around 77% of the 1860 value. The population steadily starts to grow in England to around 6 million. And the income per person drops about half of this of the value in the year 1200. Now, Black Death hits. Population in England, Black Death among other conditions, caused population in England to drop from about 6 million in 1310 to about a little over 2 million in 1450. But as a result, income per person increases dramatically, almost doubles. And I don't know of any scholar who's seriously arguing for this, but you might think that the Renaissance might have actually been triggered by the Black Death. Now, then you see here that income per person and population kind of just varies along this line for a while. And then around 1600, it starts to kind of emerge, and then by the 1790s, it's escaping. And then this graph continues further. We not only see great increases in population, but also in income per person. And anyone might have a guess what's going on here? What big event in history that's occurring in the early 19th century? Industrial Revolution. There you go. So, in this presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about the exact mechanics of what causes a Malthusian trap, and how maybe this can relate to some countries in the developing world today. What I mean by the developing world is some very poor countries in, let's say, sub-Saharan Africa. Also, another thing is that even though this data is just collected from England, it can be easily argued that this is true, this condition was true for almost all countries in the pre-industrial world.
My name is Purnima Bajwa. I'm a ERC senior, and I'm here at the Undergraduate Research Conference presenting my MMW6 paper. That was on the 1984 anti-Sikh riots. I sort of have a personal story with this because the paper involves a lot of topics involving Hindu and Sikh conflicts, and my parents are Hindu and Sikh who decided to get married just about the time of the riots. This is a story that I grew up with. And I moved to this country when I was 16, transferred to ERC, and I was very glad to take MMW6. This was sort of an obvious topic that I would choose for my paper. But what's more amazing is that after I wrote the paper, I was satisfied to the point of turning my paper in and receiving a good grade. But I was very inspired and encouraged to do research on my own. So after taking MW6 last spring, right after the end of the quarter, I started working for a biomed company, and on my free time, I decided to pick up the topic again and do some further research on my own, at my own time, write another paper, and find the ultimate cause of what I think was the reason for the 1984 riots.